Welcome to the week 1 lesson, how to create a learning project in school. So who is this lesson for? Well, if you're a high school, university, or college student, or you're taking a well-defined course, maybe you're going to your community center and taking a very particular course to learn Spanish, or you are online perhaps and you're learning a course through Coursera. This lesson is going to apply to the majority of people taking Rapid Learner. Either you are in a formal education program, again, that could be in grade school, high school, university, college, postgraduate studies, something where you're given a syllabus, where you're given a defined curriculum, maybe you have multiple classes, or you are doing classes or some type of class as your self-study as the project that you want to do in this class. That could be classes through Coursera, Udacity, it could be even a class that you've gotten like something like this, like Rapid Learner. This is going to apply to the majority of you here, and I want to tell you how you can make projects based on what you're trying to learn, based on the format you've already been given, that are going to be successful so you can learn efficiently, and also so you can apply the lessons of this course. So one question you might ask yourself is, why do I need to have a project if I'm already in some kind of formal curriculum? Why would I need to have a project if I'm already given a course that's broken down week by week and as assignments and practice? Why don't I just do that? Well, forming a project is more than just having a finished plan. It's more than just having this is what I'm going to do week by week. Because you're right, if you look at a syllabus for a lot of courses, it does seem to provide something amounting to a plan for learning the subject that you're learning. However, forming a project is also about the act of planning. And by actually doing the planning and thinking through where you're going to make your time investments, making decisions about, well, what's going to happen if I get off track, kind of thinking in ahead of different scenarios that might happen and resolving them ahead of time, this is going to have a big effect on your motivation. It's going to allow you to have more commitment to the project to actually get it done. And more importantly, I think it's going to take a lot of the stuff that has been kind of skimmed over in your course, like how do you review for things? How do you do extra studying? How much time do you need to read things? It's going to solidify these details so that you're going to be able to do very well in your classes. Creating a project will also allow you to make important adjustments and decisions about how you want to process the curriculum. People who create curriculums, and this includes me when I've created this course, have many different users in mind. That when I created this course, I wasn't thinking that this course is for John Smith and he has exactly this kind of thing he wants to learn. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a general course. Instead, in my head, I'm imagining many different people who might be taking this course, from a high school student to a college student to someone who's doing graduate studies to someone who's trying to do the MIT challenge to learning a language. I have a lot of different end users in mind. And what this means, not only for me, but for the people who are teaching your classes, is that we're going to present what we think is the best fit for the most people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best fit for you, even if it is a very good course. And so creating a project is going to allow you to make adjustments to the format that you've been given within reason, within the realm of changes that you can actually make. And in doing that, it's going to allow you to have a bit of extra control to actually accomplish your goals. So let's go through the 6 steps that we talked about in the quick lesson here and go through them. How do they work for creating a learning project in school? So the first step with all learning projects is to define a clear goal. So if you are doing multiple classes, as you would be if you were in high school or university, I recommend setting a project that encompasses all of your classes for the term. So instead of making a different project for each class, which is going to make things complicated, just make your project about doing all the classes. Next, you should pick a specific target. So a good example of this is I want to get 80% in all my classes. I want to graduate with distinction from a particular class. I want to be able to do something after the end of the class if you are not taking a class merely to get a grade or to get credit. If you're taking Spanish, you might say, well, after this class, I want to be able to have a 15-minute conversation in Spanish. These are all really good specific goals for setting your target. Even if when I was doing the MIT challenge, even though I didn't have such a high bar, but my goal was that I wanted to pass the final exams and do the programming project. So you can see here this is quite specific and clear. You may want to set somewhat different goals for different classes based on your own desires and difficulties. So let's say you are a computer science major and you are taking 4 computer science classes and you're taking a French class as well just for fun. Now you may have specific goals for your computer science classes. You may say, you know what, I want to get A's in all my computer science classes, but your French one you might not have as strong a feeling that you'll be able to do well in French, so you could maybe set, well, I'll be happy if I can get a B in my French class. Or you might want to set them based on different goals based on what you want to accomplish in them. So if you're doing a web design class, you may want to get more than just a good grade. You may want to actually be able to do something with web design after that. So it's okay to have different goals for different classes. It's also okay to have the same goal for all the classes, but I just want to point this out in case you are taking multiple classes. So let's look at the next step, which is going to be selecting the learning materials. So normally this is just going to be the stated materials for the course. So these would be the lectures that you're supposed to attend, the readings you're supposed to do from textbooks or course notes. It is going to be the assignments that you have to do. It's going to be whatever projects you're working on. It may be some additional materials, like you could consider lab materials. My feeling is that I'm using the term materials kind of broadly. In some cases, they may not be a physical material, it may be a learning activity. But I think it's important to think about the learning materials you're going to be using in the course. And for most of the time, I say stick with what they tell you the learning materials are. Don't try to be too creative because that's going to get you into trouble. However, if you have a lot of experience with this course type, with this instructor, with this type of field, you may decide, you know what, I'm not going to have time to do X or Y, so I'm going to eliminate those. I've spoken to people in certain types of courses where the stated materials are clearly more than anybody can actually manage in their schedule, and it's up to the student to decide which ones they want to use and which ones they don't want to use. And in these cases, you might have to make some selections. So one thing to do is if you have too much material to go through, so if you've been given more material than you'll have to use. So an example of this is that I did a physics course for MIT OpenCourseWare, and they had practice exams and assignments for, I think, several years of those classes. So different questions for each of those years. Now, clearly, doing the MIT challenge, I didn't have enough time to go through all the material for one session once, never mind going through multiple years. So in these cases, when you have this situation, you need to do triage. Triage is a concept that comes from battlefield medicine, where you treat the people who you can actually save, you ignore the people that you can't save because they're already wounded, or the people who, if you do make some medical intervention, they were going to live anyways. So this is how you have to deal with it in your own life, is you have to use the material which is going to create an impact in your learning materials and your studies. That means omitting material that is going to, well, you already knew it, or omitting material where even taking that material is not going to help you with that particular topic or subject. If you have too little material, so some classes, particularly if you're taking classes online or you're following some kind of curriculum outside of its normal context, you may need a supplement. So this also happened to me during the MIT challenge, where I was given classes that, you know, this class just has slideshows. It doesn't even have course notes. How am I going to learn this? Well, in these cases, it meant that I had to find some materials online that I could use to supplement some of the ideas, so I could get explanations about some of the concepts. So some other examples we can think of supplementing would be tutoring. You can make your self-made questions for recall, resources online, Wikipedia. These are all places that you can do to supplement if you don't have enough material. So again, my recommendation is to start with the prescribed readings, lectures, assignments, and only modifying it once you know more about their relative importance. So remember, this plan that you're creating for your project is an organic document. Once you start taking the class, you may realize, hey, the lectures and the readings are exactly the same. I can omit one. Or you may decide, you know what, the lectures cover everything that's in the reading, but they also miss some things. So maybe I am okay to do all the readings, but I might not attend every single lecture. Or same thing with assignments. You might be like, you know what, these assignments, they're not all for marks. I'm going to focus only on the ones that I need to be able to pass the class. So let's move to the third step, which is estimating the time required. So this one is really easy. It corresponds to the deadline for when the course is complete. If you do have some flexibility in the deadlines, so you do have a little bit of wiggle room in when the course is over, which can be the case if you're doing an online course, let's say, then what I recommend doing is adding up the total time to go through all the materials, do all the necessary studying and review, and then calculate that based on the weekly time investment. So this is a bottom-up calculation strategy, but if you've decided, you know what, I want to take this class, I want to spend 10 hours learning this class per week, then go through it and figure out, okay, where am I going to be able to fit in this time in my week? I get to 10 hours, and then from there, let's figure out how long will it take to go through all the materials to finish the course, which you might say, okay, it's going to take me 6 weeks or 8 weeks. The next step is to set your deadlines and milestones. So the first place to start is with the hard deadlines. This is your exam dates, this is your quiz dates, assignment due dates, when you have to hand that essay in. Put those down. These ones cannot be moved, and so it's very important to write these down first. Next, you need to calculate how much work is required to lead up to each point. Now, for some classes, this might be a little bit more complicated, but really what I'm asking you to do is I'm saying that for this particular class, or this particular assignment or quiz, let's say it's a quiz that's covering week 1 and week 2 material, and it's taking place sometime in week 4 or week 3. Then in this case, you have to know week 1 and week 2 material. So add up all those lectures and reading assignments and figure out how much work is required to lead up to each point. Keep in mind, when you're doing this, you should also be adding in the normal amount of time that you spend studying. So beyond just doing the reading and the assignments and whatever is given to you in the course, how much time would you normally spend reviewing or preparing before a quiz or an exam? So now once you've done this, once you've done behind each deadline, you've decided how much work is required, I want you to look to see if there's any lumps in your schedule. So this is something that doesn't usually happen in an individual class, but it may happen if you're taking multiple classes. So I'll give an example. If you're taking 5 classes, it's very common for those 5 classes to have their midterms all in the same month. So you may have 5 midterm exams that you are expected to study for all in October, whereas September, there's nothing. And in November, maybe there's only 1. So you have a really crazy month for October, but you don't have a crazy month for September or November. What do you do about this? This can happen in many different classes, and it's usually just because there's a natural rhythm to a course where you want to have some kind of test in the middle and some kind of test at the end. And so this is just sort of how it piles up because you're doing the classes at the same time frame. Now what you can do about this is you can shift back work by making soft deadlines so the effort is smoothed out. So as I gave my example, let's say you have those 5 midterms. Well, instead of, let's say there's 5 midterms all on the same week. Well, instead of doing the studying for those 5 exams all on the same week, maybe you did the studying for one of the midterms 3 weeks before that actual exam. So it was way ahead of time. None of your other classmates are studying for it yet, but you're already done and studied. So that all you have to do is maybe an hour or 2 of review before the actual class comes. You don't have to do the 10 hours of studying and now you're burning yourself out trying to study for all these exams. This is a little complicated. Some of these things that you're going to be able to smooth out fairly easily. Some of them you're not going to be able to. For example, if you're taking a class and most of the important material you need to start a project or essay, let's say, is coming right before that point in time, and you have the same situation for multiple classes, then you might just be really busy. You might not be able to do it. But what I do recommend is looking at your schedule and being creative about it, because I've found that in most cases, it's possible to make these soft deadlines so that you can actually shift the work around and smooth out how much you're working throughout the semester, throughout the course load. If you want a little bit more information on soft deadlines, we do have another lesson on that. And in that one, I'm going to be explaining why if you treat these soft deadlines like they're hard deadlines, so you pretend that you're studying for this exam like it was tomorrow, not 3 weeks from now, not just, well, it would be nice to study ahead of time, but these are actually deadlines that you use, that they're functional in your system, then you can make your academic life much easier because you've got a smoothed out process, you're not burning yourself out, and you can really devote 100% of your cognitive ability in each particular instance instead of getting exhausted and wasting it when you need it most. The next step is to get the week-by-week breakdown of your schedule. So with your soft and hard deadlines in hand, break down your schedule into week-by-week components. This should include all of your readings, assignments, lectures. I highly recommend getting an agenda if you're doing a class, because although some learning projects that people are going to be doing in this Rapid Learner program are going to be the kinds of projects that maybe you don't need to have this really detailed breakdown that, 8 weeks from now I'm going to be doing exactly this, because maybe they're almost the same every single week. When I was learning languages, for instance, I had about the same weekly tasks that I was doing each week. Similarly with the MIT Challenge, I was doing classes so quickly that each week would be a new class, so there would be not that much need for this kind of long-term planning. However, if you're taking a couple classes, let's say, what I really recommend doing is getting an agenda and writing out what you need to do every single week. That should mean reading assignments, assignments, problem sets. Also include your lectures, also include your labs. I know sometimes people don't typically think of those as being homework, but they take up your time. And because they take up your time, they should go in this system so that you know exactly how many hours you're spending. And also include reviewing. If you feel like you need to do reviewing and studying, that should be included as well. So at this point, you may want to check the total time that is required each week and double check whether you were able to get that smoothness by making those soft deadlines previously. So if you're not, if it looks like, oh wow, I've got a couple weeks that there's almost no work and then I've got some weeks that are crazy amounts of work, then you might need to make some further adjustments. So you might want to shift some things around, make some new soft deadlines. And if you can't do that, then you should at least be aware that there's going to be these crunch periods coming up so that you can also organize the rest of your life around it and make sure that you're well rested, that you are not burning yourself out before these crunch periods come up. Again, the best way to do this is to take the syllabus, take down all the things that you have there, and put it into this week-by-week breakdown. So another quick reminder, include your studying and review time. I can't tell you how many people, they spend a lot of time studying, but they don't really include it in this period. If you normally spend 20 hours per exam studying before a test, then you should put 20 hours of time into your schedule. This course, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to learn more efficiently, but you cannot start on a basis where you have unrealistic expectations. Starting with how you're currently studying is the right foundation to build the correct studies. It doesn't make sense to build some schedule where you don't have any studying or review time, and then when you get to the final exam, you find out, oh, I actually need to do all this studying and review, and you're putting in tons and tons of time. That doesn't work for this week-by-week breakdown. So the final step is to review and adjust. So there's going to be a couple things that you're definitely going to have to make changes for in your progress. So first thing, can anything be deleted from the materials? Now that you've been going through the classes for a bit, you maybe have a couple weeks under your belt, is there something that you can remove that isn't helpful? Now I'm putting this up as a rarity because I think for the majority of students in the majority of situations, for the results that they want to get, where I'm thinking of people who are in this course are not here to pass. Typically they want to get 85%, 95%, they want to get A pluses. In those cases, it is very dangerous to delete material just because it only takes missing one idea, one concept that was in the lectures and not in the reading material, that if you deleted the lectures, now you are behind. So I generally recommend that you're probably not going to want to delete things. However, there may be a situation, depending on your goals, depending on the class, where you may decide, you know what, I'm not going to do this element of the course because I don't feel it's worth my time or it's valuable enough. Another thing is to check your estimates. Were your estimates off for the time required per week, the amount of time that was required to do particular assignments or reading things? I highly recommend, if you budgeted in your schedule, it's going to take me an hour to do each of these reading assignments, but now it's taking you actually 3 hours. You need to adjust your schedule. You need to update your estimates. And so this is an important part of adjusting and making your ideas more concrete. Remember, the plan is an organic document. It's not something that you can set fixed and stick with 100%. You have to make adjustments. Were your estimates off for your personal productivity? So even if you were right with the estimates, did you overestimate how much you were going to be able to work per week? Did you overestimate how diligently you were going to be able to study? In these cases, you might have to adjust your plan again. Now, some cases you might not be able to. Maybe you have fixed deadlines and your goals are fixed. So what you need to work on is improving your personal productivity. But in other cases, if you do have some flexibility or you do have some choice about what you're pursuing, you may just decide, you know what, this is too much work. I can't do all this work, so therefore I need to make this goal a little easier. So your first project plan, it may not be as accurate as you'd like it to be. You may have some situations where you planned for this and something completely different happened. That's okay. Especially in this school project, I've given you a lot of detail. This is quite a sophisticated planning approach that can take you maybe a couple hours to do if you're doing a couple classes. And so this is the kind of thing that maybe you're going to get some stuff wrong. You're going to get one of those things wrong that we just talked about that you're going to have to adjust for, or you're going to make things wrong that you can't adjust for that easily. That's okay. But I'm hoping that as you continue to practice this technique, as you continue to plan for more projects, you're going to get better and better, you're going to get more and more accurate, and then what's going to happen is that when you need to tackle something difficult in the future, you're going to be able to whip up a plan, and it's no longer going to feel like, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I get the result I want? It's going to feel like all I have to do is create this plan and work at it. So this isn't something that you're going to be able to necessarily do your first time, but it is something that I hope that you will be able to do in the long term. So this has been how to create a learning project in school for Week 1 Rapid Learner. I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the materials in the course.